Hey, welcome back to the garage here at Basin Motorsports. I'm Canaan, and today I'm going to put in a layer of sound deadening in the Z06 Corvette. Now, if you guys are familiar with the Z06 Corvettes, you know that they come with thinner glass, very little insulation. They are more track-oriented than actual kind of cruiser and luxury. Well, I want to fix that. I like the power, I like everything else, but let's add some sound deadening. So I need to take out all the interior of the Z06 to be able to put in a layer of boom mats. Now this is the same stuff I usually use. It's Design Engineering's version of sound deadener. And when I measured up the car for the Corvette, basically on the floor itself, I'm going to add in some along the pillar and on the top. I gave it roughly a guesstimate of about 55 square feet. Now I bought a kit that is 60 square feet, so these are 2 square feet per sheet, so it's 30 sheets of sound deadener. Once I get this out, I'm going to lay it all out to make sure that everything is where it should be and how much I'm going to need. So we'll see, is my 55 enough or is it just way too much? Now, since I have an amplifier in the car plus power seats, I'm going to go ahead and remove the seat bolts or the nuts holding the seats down, so that way I can move these seats forward and back while the battery's still connected. Once those are loose, I'm going to go ahead and disconnect the battery. Because they do have airbag sensors, I don't want to fool with any of that with the airbags. Plus, I will take the amplifier, the aftermarket amplifier that's in the back here, take it out, and I also won't have to worry about having any of the lights kill the battery by draining it while it's on for any other reason. So let me get the seats moved, take the nuts off back and forth, and then I'll disconnect the battery, and we're going to start taking this thing apart quickly, piece by piece. Alrighty, well, here we are, down to the nitty-gritty in the Corvette. So all the body panels are removed up to about everything I don't need to do. Now the headliner I have not taken out yet, because one thing I don't want to do is take this out if I run out of material for the floor. The floor and I think the pillars are probably the biggest thing I need to worry about. So I'm going to concentrate on those with all the material I have for the boom mat. And then if I have enough to go onto the headliner, I will drop that down. But otherwise, everything else is out. You can kind of see in there, I still have a lot of the cables in from the radio. Somebody put it in an aftermarket radio amp. All the speakers were replaced, I believe, just beyond the cables. And that's what's sitting back up there. This right here is the amp. I haven't disconnected it, because I don't really need to. I may just move it. I think a couple of the speaker cables need to be moved or lengthened, which is pretty easy to do. But there's kind of the inside you can see of what everything's taken out. A couple of the clips broke just because they're from 2003, and I have extras here that I will take care of. But if you ever looked at wanting to take this apart, there you go. And there's the trunk area, same thing. Just got material in there that I need to cover and get everything done and situated, and we will get rolling. So I need to clean and then start putting in there the boom mat, and we'll see how far it goes. All right, so here's going to be the finished product of all of the boom mat and the sound insulation. Now I did use all sheets, so this is 30 sheets total of boom mat, so it is 60 square feet. Still need to put the amp back in, but footwell on the passenger side is done, up and around the transmission hump there. Same thing on the driver's side, and then it starts going into the back. So if I just sit down here and kind of talk through this, as you can see, the floor all the way around is done down into the wells in each, not perfectly to the floor, but it's going to cover everything that is the noise makers. Again, along the back wall there and around the corner on each side. And then you can see I've also have some extra shoddy that I honestly don't even know where I got this, but it's somewhere along the way I picked this up. This is 7 sheets, very thin. It's probably, oh geez, 1/4 inch maybe. It's not very thick. So I have 5 of them running that way, 1 across the top, cut it, just to make sure I go the width, and then there's that 1L extra piece right there. Now this is all going to be in addition to every factory piece, but there really wasn't much there when you take it out. There's not a lot there. Your transmission tunnel and then your top section across the back are your major noise areas for the Corvettes because of the rear transaxle. Now if you see up there in the pillar in this area here, I didn't add boom mat. This is a 1-inch, very ultra soft EPDM foam. I don't even know where I got that. Somewhere along the way I picked it up. It's a sample sheet from a supplier. So I assume somewhere along the way when I was working in the automotive factories that I got that. So I just slid it in half, basically in triangles. And then that is the pillar, kind of the hollow area there that is directly on the outside. So that's directly on the inside of this. Now it won't translate sound. So there you go. Nothing on the insulation on the headliner. So floor all the way around the pillars. And now I need to put everything back in. And then we're going to go for a test drive and test the before and after and see how big of a difference all this is going to make. Alright, so now with everything back in, what you would expect is that nothing appears to have changed after adding the sound deadening. So if you look inside here, everything is good, everything fits well, no changes to the fit. Now the only thing you notice that previous owner had added in the sound, kind of the foam blocker there behind there for the coupe, which I added back in, and everything underneath the padding on everything else, because I added in so much sound deadener, it's a little bit more puffy. But otherwise, everything fits well, and just being a little bit more puffy, it means your panels, like your plastic panels there, are going to bite into your carpet and everywhere else just a little bit more, but otherwise everything fits very well. Now, of course, the big question on everybody's mind is going to be, well, what changed by adding the sound deadening and the extra foam? The biggest deal is we drove the car last night and I did some testing prior to this last fall getting kind of like a baseline. So 6th gear, about 55 miles an hour, just cruising on one stretch of road. What we found was right here above the center console, what we found was that it was about 85 decibels, somewhere in there, 84, 85 decibels, right up here about the beginning of the shifter, about a foot up. Now, if you take that same thing back there above the transmission tunnel, or the hump, as you want to call it, right under the window, we found that it was about 87 to 89 decibels. Now, after doing the sound deadening, we found last night that it was about 83 decibels right here above the console. So 1 to 2 decibel change. And then above the transmission tunnel, it was about 85. So again, 2 to 3 to 4, somewhere in that range was the change. Now inside of that, I can tell you when we went to town, as much as it's not a huge decibel decrease, one thing we did find is that the kind of the low roar of the tires and the transmission tunnel, that was definitely reduced. We found that we could have a nice conversation when we went to town. We didn't have to yell at each other, and our ears, by the time we got to town, really weren't ringing. Now outside of that, a couple other things I did is I fixed something on the radio. Everything was reprogrammed. I had to repair my phone, etc. Nothing major, and we got everything fixed back in. Now I did have some extra vinyl in the shop from past projects. So on the Corvette, you know, there's tinting on the windshield down to a certain point. I just went and covered that in black vinyl, so now it is fairly opaque versus tinted. In Oregon, it cannot come down. Tinting can't come below the ASI mark, which is about right here. And so you can see that this is about a ½ inch above that or so. That way it's good there. Now when you tint the windows, you know on the back, if you've ever seen it, there are a dot matrix bubble pattern across the top. I also put in some vinyl here to cover that, so when I get the windows tinted, I don't have to worry about the kind of that splotchy look. And looking from the rear window, from the mirror, you really can't see that the vinyl is here. Everything is covered, so that's good. And then on the door jambs, I decided just to go ahead and throw some down there. Keeps it scuff proof. And again, it didn't cost me anything other than time because I already had the pieces here. So the gray is an Avery Dennison matte titanium. Cast offs from doing the Mustang here. The orange is an Oracal. It's like a 970A, I think, and it's just a kind of a vibrant orange. And then the black is Avery Dennison gloss black. Now both the orange and the black came off a different piece from a Suburban I did previously. So there is the passenger side and there is the driver's side. Not exactly a matching pattern side to side, but it's going to keep it scotch free, scuff free, and it kind of gives it that neat look where you get kind of a fancy tuxedo, and inside it's got a different liner. Now, one of the big questions is always going to be, is it worth it, knowing that the change in there isn't drastic? Well, for me, it is going to be. I think it's going to pay itself forward. Taking this on long cruises or kind of like weekend trips, I think would be great, just not have my ears ringing. And it only adds about 40 pounds to the car, which really is pretty insignificant considering what you can do to add more horsepower to a Corvette. Now itself, this is probably a couple $100 in sound deadener. The job is between 8 and 10 hours, I would say, probably between taking all the interior out, laying it down, and then putting it all back in. I did a bunch of extra work, so it took me a lot of extra time, but that's okay. Just figure 8 to 10 hours. And if you have questions on the material I used, check the links in the description. That will kick you over to where you can buy it, or at least check it out if you're interested in the materials or the tools I used to get this result. Definitely worth the improvement, and I just tell you, it's better with the sound, the radio playing a CD. Much better, much cleaner, much crisper bass. The tweeters sound pretty good, and I don't have to worry about too much noise in the cabin anymore. So that's it from this time from Basin Motorsports. Thanks for checking it out. We'll see you next time.